It was 1914 when an 8-year-old boy was playing in a village in Japan. It was then that he saw a machine running on 4 wheels. It was a Ford Model T that this kid was very surprised to see. That was the day when this 8-year-old boy first got attached to cars and mechanical parts. His name was Soichiro Honda, and who knew that in the coming time we will see his name on every car, big and small. Soichiro Honda was born in 1906 in a small village near Mount Fuji, Japan. His father was a blacksmith as well as a part-time bicycle repairer. 5 of Honda's siblings had already died of various illnesses, so his parents had high hopes for their child. But he had no interest in studies, although Honda was more interested in repairing bicycles with his father. When he turned 16, he saw a job ad in the newspaper. Technicians wanted at this automobile service station in Tokyo called Art Shukai. Honda wrote a letter to the company for the job and luckily got a positive reply. This was the time when Honda left his home and school and went to Tokyo to earn money. Honda's dream was shattered when he arrived at Art Shukai in Tokyo. The owner of the company started having Honda do cleaning jobs and even put him on a BB sting. What would Honda do if he was helpless? On the one hand, he had left his home and parents. On the other hand, he was being taken for granted. He was ashamed to go back to his village because he did not dare to pay his parents. It was for this reason that he was forced to do the same odd jobs for the next several months. After a few months, the owner of Art Shukai started taking over workshop work from Honda as well. Honda was very interested in this work from the beginning, so he understood things easily. Within a few months, he had learned a lot about all kinds of vehicles and their parts. During this time, Art Shukai also built 2 sports cars, the first being the Art Daimler and the Dosey Curtis. Both of these vehicles were built using used engines, which also won first place in the 1924 Japanese Motor Car Championship. Honda was still a good mechanic, but in this race he sat as an engineer alongside the driver. It was this event after which Soichiro Honda made motorsports his religion. For the next several years, he continued to work at Art Shukai and expand his experience. In 1928, at the age of 22, its owner decided to open another branch of his own. The branch was to be located in Hamamatsu City, and the owner assigned Honda to run it. Honda started this new branch of Art Shukai with 1 worker and grew it to 30 workers in just 2 years. He had now also become a brilliant mechanic and racing diver. He used his skills to design a sports car for his owner. This car could run at a speed of 120 kilometers per hour, which broke all the old records. This record remained the highest record in Japan for the next 20 years. The importance of Honda in the heart of the owner of Art Shukai had increased. He wanted to open his own workshop, but perhaps fate did not approve. In 1936, Honda had a terrible accident while racing. In this accident, his life was saved, but his left arm was fractured, his shoulder was dislocated, and there were several injuries on his face. His life seemed to end here. He could neither work as a mechanic nor participate in racing. After several months, when he recovered, he requested the owner of Art Shukai that he could no longer do this repairing job. Instead, he came up with the idea that why not start a separate company to make spare parts? Honda's idea was immediately rejected by Art Shukai's stakeholders because they were getting ready profits and no one wanted to take new risk. On this, Honda decided that he would open a parts manufacturing company alone. In 1936, at the age of 30, he opened Dokai Seki Heavy Industries with his friend, and made his friend Sachiro Kato its president. He had opened the company, but Honda had no investment to run it. He worked for Art Shukai during the day, while at night he tried to make his own engine pistons for his new company. For the next several months, he continued with the same routine, but could not find any success. On the contrary, he had become weak due to continuous shifts. One failure after another blocked his way. It was then that he took admission in a university to specialize in metallurgy. In 1939, after 3 years of hard work, he finally succeeded in making a piston. Now he quit his job with Art Shukai and started making pistons full-time. But he did not know that there are still many faults in the piston he made. When he offered his pistons to the Toyota company, Toyota rejected 47 out of 50 designs. This news struck Honda like lightning, as there was no way back for him now. He started traveling all over Japan to understand the requirements of different companies, visited different factories, met car manufacturers, spent the next several years understanding the market, and then Honda made pistons once again. This time, these pistons had passed the quality control of all the companies. He started getting orders in droves, and once again Honda saw his dreams come true. His company also hired 2,000 workers to fulfill the orders. Who knew that Honda's happiness was only a guest for a few months? In 1941, Japan entered World War II, and the ministry took control of several Japanese companies, including one owned by Soichiro Honda. Honda was demoted to senior managing director of his company, and things got worse when company workers were drafted into military service. The next 3 years were very difficult, but an incident occurred in 1944 that completely dashed Honda's hopes. During the air raid, a missile hit the Honda factory. Conditions throughout the country were going from bad to worse, and Japan seemed to be losing the war. Then, in 1945, there were 2 nuclear attacks that broke the back of Japan. After this incident, Japan surrendered to the Americans. The war was now over, but Honda had lost everything. He sold his Estes Toyota for yen 50,000 and sat jubilant once again. This situation was not only with Honda, but the whole of Japan was going through a very bad crisis. The economy was melting, severe shortage of food and water and inflation had broken everyone's back. Public transport was extremely difficult to find as petrol had become scarce in Japan. Meanwhile, Honda received a small engine from the Japanese Imperial Army that he used to operate a wireless radio. Forced by his habit, he came up with an idea. He thought, why not to solve his transportation problem by installing this engine in a bicycle? This will also make transportation easier and cheaper. Because in those days, people were already worried about inflation, so when they saw this engine on a bicycle, everyone liked the idea. Honda got a few used engines, but the demand was so high that now Honda has designed its own new engine. It was the first time in history that a Honda logo was seen on a machine. Honda didn't have enough money to mass produce these cycles, so he wrote an open letter to 18,000 dealers. People had so much faith in Honda that 3,000 shopkeepers gave him a positive reply and also gave money in advance. Over the next 3 years, Honda built a motorcycle that was exactly in line with the market's requirements. It was launched as Super Cub, which took the market by storm as soon as it arrived. The model was so successful that in 1958, it outsold America's own Triumph and Harley-Davidson. Because Honda was very fond of racing, that's why he decided to make a sports bike. He would go to various bike races and note down the special features of the winning bikes. During this period, such sports competitions were more than just a race, but a marketing tool for manufacturing companies. In a few years, Honda's first sports bike was launched, taking first place in the 1962 International Racing Competition. This race made Honda famous all over the world. By 1960, Honda had become the world's largest motorcycle manufacturing company, and by 1968, it had sold 1 crore units. After 62 years of his life, Soichiro Honda had finally found success, but the dream he had had since childhood had not yet been fulfilled. Honda now wanted to move into car manufacturing as well. Many people even forbade him to do so, but he did not listen to anyone. At that time, companies like Toyota and Nissan were already established in Japan. It was quite difficult to make a new place in the market there. Honda launched its first pickup truck T360, which failed. It then launched the sports car S500, of which only 1,300 units were sold. After years of hard work and several dozen designs being rejected, the Honda Civic was finally launched in 1972. This is the car whose new models are famous all over the world till date. In 1980, Honda Motors was the 3rd largest manufacturing company in Japan, and within just 10 years, it became the 3rd largest in the world. Today, we find the Honda name on cars, motors, boat engines, plane engines, and dozens of power tools. Soichiro Honda retired from the company in 1973, the year after the Honda Civic was launched. And on August 5th, 1991, this journey of his life ended forever. I hope you will like and share this video of Sarah Voice Channel. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next wonderful video.